You dig in darkness to feed the living. Tonight the ground gives way, and behind the old churchyard wall, a rattle starts shaking, closer with every breath. You are already running, sack empty, spade left in the dirt, while somewhere close a voice bellows the alarm and windows down the lane start glowing. To understand that night, go back 6 years, to a boy who could not read, standing in a tool's head, learning a trade never spoken aloud. Bill hands you the hook, not the spade. Dig only down to the coffin's head, he says, never the full length, or the loose ground gives you away. Your first grave is a pauper's plot. No headstone, no mourners left to notice. Bill keeps watch while your hands shake, working the hook through the narrow hole. The hook catches under the chin, and the body comes free with a low, terrible sound you will remember for the rest of your entire life. You leave the rings on her fingers. The shroud stays behind in the grave. A body is a lesser crime than stealing its clothes, and Bill never lets you forget it. The porter at the school door pays by the inch of the body, not the person it was, counting coins without looking at your face. The law allows only the bodies of hanged murderers for the surgeons, and hangings are rare, so the anatomy schools stay hungry all through the year. So you and Bill work 3 churchyards in a week, moving fast, leaving no trace above ground, only a hole no wider than a man's shoulders. Your hands crack and bleed from the cold clay, and Bill rubs tallow into them by candlelight, telling you the ache fades faster than the guilt. A body earns you £2, more than a month of honest labour, and by winter Bill says your hands are steady enough to work a grave alone. Alone now, Bill says, sliding a folded paper across the table, an address on it, a name you do not recognise, a grave dug yesterday. No one watches your back now. You dig entirely alone, hook the body free in half the usual time, and quietly realise that you are good at this. By spring you no longer flinch at the sound of a distant rattle in the dark, and the trade has its own quiet name now for what you have slowly become, a resurrection man. You stop selling to one school and learn every porter's price, playing surgeons against each other, since competition beats one school taking you for granted. Rival gangs work the same ground now, and you learn to read a grave for spade marks before you sink your own, a silent war. In one good month, you and Bill empty 11 graves between 2 churchyards, more than the hanging yard supplies in a year to every school in London. Bill's hands shake too badly to hold a spade now, and one grey morning he presses his own hook into yours and tells you the trade is yours. Years pass, the same cold work. The boy who once shook over a stranger's grave is gone, replaced by a man the watch fears. Other gangs pay to drink at your table, hoping you will name your churchyards. You never do, because naming them over ale ends with a noose. The best schools always pay extra for a fresh whole body, so you learn to work faster now, 3 whole hours from spade to sail, before the cold truly sets in. Expertise never buys safety. A coffin lid cracks louder than you expect, and you freeze in the dark, counting your heartbeat against the yard's silence. The parish hires more watchmen yearly, doubling patrols around new graves, and posts a reward for any resurrection man caught with dirt on his hands. By the height of the trade, you are one of dozens working London's churchyards nightly, feeding a hunger for bodies the schools can never quite fully satisfy. Families start caging their dead in iron mortsafes now, locked cages over the coffin lid, so you learn to dig around the bars instead of through them. The shed is yours alone now, tools hanging exactly where Bill left them, and you keep his old ledger of names and prices in a drawer no one opens. Across the city, 7 gangs like yours dig nightly, feeding 5 anatomy schools, a trade so large the newspapers print warnings for families to guard the dead. The Windmill Street School pays the best price for a body under 6 hours old, so you learn every burial that week, timing your spade to the freshest grief. You still always remove your hat at the graveside before you ever dig, a quiet habit from Bill you never explain, not to the other men, not even to yourself. A patrol nearly takes you in march, lantern light sweeping the stone wall you are pressed against, and you count to 100 before you dare to breathe again. Younger diggers ask you to teach them the hook, and you refuse, remembering how young you were the night Bill first placed it in your hand. Not every family can afford a mortsafe of their own, so grief alone must stand watch there, and grief, you have slowly learned, sleeps too easily once the crowd leaves. You take that grave 3 nights after the burial, telling yourself she no longer needs the dress she wore. Only her body still holds a price. You spend that money before dawn, same tavern, same table, because thinking about whose grave it was is not how you stay in this trade. In 1 year alone, you deliver over 60 bodies through that same door. More dead pass through your 2 hands than most surgeons treat in a whole decade. You are now, by any measure, the most feared man in 3 parishes, quietly indispensable to 5 more, and both reputations are about to make the churchyards more dangerous. Grief starts buying iron instead of prayer. Families rig man-traps over fresh graves, serrated jaws hidden under soil, built to take a leg, not just a fright. Your spade strikes cold iron instead of wood one night, and you freeze inches from a trap that would have taken your whole foot off at the ankle. After that night, you learn to probe the soil carefully with a thin iron rod before ever swinging the spade. One more small ritual grief has forced into your trade. A grave turns up empty by daylight, and the street gathers at the churchyard gate, voices rising into anger that does not wait for a magistrate. This time, the angry mob catches a rival gang first, dragging 2 men through the street, and you learn later that the watch saved them from being torn apart. The schools still need bodies every week, regardless of danger, so business does not stop. It only moves later into the night, further from familiar ground. You take a job outside your usual parishes, ground you do not know, and every shadow along that wall feels like a trap you have not found. A rattle sounds 2 streets over, not for you, but close enough that your whole body goes still, hook halfway into the earth, breath caught in your throat. The watch now knows your work by its signature, a hole no wider than a shoulder, and sets patrols for the man they have never caught. You choose the same churchyard again, the ground you trust completely. Certain familiar territory means less danger, not realizing the watch has reached the very same conclusion. The rattle you hear now is the same rattle from the start of this story, and you finally understand, mid-dig, that tonight your luck runs out. You clear the churchyard wall a half-second before the lantern beam finds you, and you do not stop running until your own street swallows you whole. You keep working for years after that night, more careful now, while in Parliament, lawmakers argue over a different solution to the body shortage. Parliament passes the Anatomy Act in 1832, allowing surgeons to legally use the unclaimed dead from workhouses and hospitals and donated bodies for the very first time. Within a month, the porter at the school door stops answering the back gate at all, because the surgeons now have a legal supply and no need of yours. Historians still argue how many resurrection men vanished from the record that year, nameless in life, forgotten again in the trade's sudden death, no monument, no mourners. Your shed stands shuttered within the year, the padlock rusting shut, the hook you carried for 30 years hanging exactly where you left it, gathering dust and cobwebs. The old tavern table sits empty most nights, the men you once drank beside gone into other trades, or into graves no one will dig up again. You could still dig faster and quieter than any man alive, but a skill nobody needs isn't a skill, only a memory shaped like your hands. Families stop buying mortsafes and man-traps within a few years, because the dead, for the first time in this grim trade's history, are finally left in peace. You never decide whether you were a criminal or a tradesman doing work the city secretly depended on, and now no one is left who cares which. You still walk past the old churchyard sometimes, out of habit more than purpose, the ground long since settled flat over graves only you remember digging into. The law did not stop the poor from feeding the living. It only decided a workhouse ledger could do what your hook once did, without ever paying you a single shilling. You hang the hook by the door and never sharpen it again. Some nights, when the wind moves through the yard, you find yourself listening for the rattle.